Good morning, QVS U.S. History students. I hope you are doing well, and I wanted to take the opportunity today to talk to you about the new unit that we are starting this week. It's called the Immigrant Experience, Essential Unit 3 in the U.S. History course. I'm very excited about this unit. I have a lot of personal experience with immigration to the United States. I come from a family of immigrants. So we have within my family some people who have firsthand knowledge of um, like the emotional experience in moving from one place to another, transplanting your life entirely, the political and economic challenges that immigrants face as they decide to leave. One thing that I would say to you in terms of how immigrants to the United States could be described is they're a group of risk takers. If you think about the um, like all of the challenges that people have to put themselves up against, and a lot of the challenges too are like unknown, like they couldn't possibly understand how the people in a country would receive them. They couldn't possibly understand what the experience of crossing the Atlantic or the Pacific would be like. I mean, a trip like that today, 15 hours on an airplane, is difficult. And a lot of people today who migrate, they don't have the luxury of being on an airplane. Maybe they're refugees, trying to escape a political crisis. But think back 100 years ago too, where the major form of transport was a ship and traveling across those oceans for months on end in a tightly packed ship would be a challenge. So we're going to talk about that during this unit called the Immigrant Experience. You'll see on the course page that the unit will be open for 4 weeks. I'm going to take you to the course page so that my discussion this morning is a little bit more directed and explain to you what you need to do, particularly during week 1. So let's go to the course page and have a look. So here it is. You need to make sure you open the tab called Essential Unit 3, the Immigrant Experience. You can see the dates for the unit. This changes from year to year. Just make sure that we note that. And if we take a look at the unit overview, I picked another piece of Thomas Hart Benton's artwork. I love him as an American artist. You can see that it's a boy leaving his family. And then take a look at the unit overview. In this unit, we'll examine the motivations of early colonizers. So we're going to go back to the 17th century, actually, and we'll look at why they left. We always hear the phrase God, gold, and glory. So within the context of that, you can think of like social, political, economic motivations. So we'll take a look at the early colonies in North America, and we'll take a look at some documents so you can come to understand what their motivations were. We'll pay particular focus to two of the colonies, Massachusetts and Virginia, and you'll learn a little bit more particulars about Jamestown and the Massachusetts Bay Colony. By the end of the week, you're going to have to make a decision if you had to move to one of those two places, where would you go? Both of them definitely had their challenges, and I'll speak a little bit more to that as we move down into the unit. But we'll explore push and pull factors. Push factors is why the immigrant left, and the pull factors is why they went to the place that they chose to go to. So we'll look at push and pull factors that influence migration to the United States over time. I mentioned the colonial period starting with that, but we're going to go all the way up to the present. A deep analysis and debate over the immigrant experience will be conducted as students investigate immigration to the country from all areas of the world, explore the challenges that they face integrating. So immigrants have not always been welcomed to the American shores. And depending on the time and place that immigrants were coming from, they faced a lot of discrimination. So we'll get into looking at that probably more in week 2 and week 3. Special connections will be made as students consider the factors that have attracted immigrants from their respective home and host country to the American shores. So this is one cool thing at the end of the unit. You're going to look at your QSI host country to come to understand how many people from the place where you're currently living have emigrated to the United States. And if your home and host country are the same, no worries there. We will explore that more in depth. So through the method of inquiry, students will adopt a compelling question. So let me take you to the compelling question. Here's the pacing for the unit. So again, dates change from year to year, but you can see that you have 4 weeks. Lots of resources for this unit. If you want to just simply see the TSWs, you can open the course outcomes. The TSWs are highlighted in red though from week to week. Here is the textbook link. The textbook's harder to use because we are doing a thematic approach, and that's why I have all of these other links here. Lots of great readings on immigration to the United States over time. I especially like this one. It's a nonfiction piece. It's called Life Stories of Undistinguished Americans as Told by Themselves. So lots of little autobiographical pieces on people who emigrated to the United States, particularly at the turn of the 20th century. We will use that in one of the assignments in this unit. So here are the unit activities. Like we start every unit, we have 2 forums that focus on the compelling questions. So you need to go ahead and do this during week 1, and then you can see the week 1 activities. I'll come back to them in a minute. And then here's a bunch of week 2 activities, week 3, and then week 4, like every unit, is set aside for the final test. You have one A-level option for this unit. It is conducting an interview, so you're actually going to get to do history. And I will explain more about that as we move later in the unit, but it is definitely something to look forward to and think about as you are moving through these assignments from week to week. Here is the compelling question. It's quite um, compelling, I think. I hope you think so too. Is America the haven for the world's immigrants? So you have to think of the one word in this question in particular, and that word is haven. Like if you think of what is heavenly, what is an amazing place, a lot of people from all over the world have migrated to the United States over time. Like if you look at, oh, I'm taking to the wrong place. If you look at one of the maps in the activities, you'll see that migration to the United States is like the #1 destination throughout world history since 1500. And the big question is it a haven? When people moved there, did they experience success? Did they find comfort? Were they welcomed? Um, if they were not welcome, did they eventually find a way to navigate successfully through the American system? Have they been afforded the American dream? Like you can think of all of those things as it relates to that one word in particular. Is America the haven for the world's immigrants? This is definitely debatable. Some people would say absolutely, and other people would say no way. Many people, Japanese Americans, Chinese Americans, even Irish Americans, have faced a lot of obstacles as they transplanted their lives in the United States. So, in this first compelling question, I want you to give me your initial thoughts in this first forum. So, the responsibility or directions are outlined here. I have lots of videos for you to create some context. So watch the videos and then follow the directions to participate in this initial forum on that compelling question. And then same with supporting questions, just like every other time. What are some supporting questions that you can develop? There's a little short film here again, to act as some context, and go ahead and then participate in that supporting question forum. And then in week 1, there are 2 main TSWs for you to cover. The first one is outline motivations of early European colonizers of the Americas, and then identify push and pull factors that influence various waves of immigration. So we're going to start with the colonial period, and then we will go into a little bit more of the early 19th century history of the country and take a look at immigration experience at that point in time. With the European motivations, again, I mentioned God, gold, and glory. So you'll look at some documents in this SCORM package that relate to those three major themes, and then you can draw conclusions like what were the most compelling factors that influenced exploration and colonization. Were people doing it out of religious reasons so that they could practice more freely? Were people moving for economic opportunity, or were people moving for political glory to expand the sphere of influence of their state? And then with that, that's more general to the European experience. And then with the second activity, we get into British colonization. So we will look more closely at the 13 American colonies and the first two colonies, Virginia at Jamestown and Salem at Massachusetts, will be the focus of this forum, because my big question here is, if you had to move to one of those as an early colonist, which one would you choose? And you might say, oh, easy choice, but it's not so easy. Jamestown was very cutthroat. It was an economic joint stock company, so they were really worried about profit and investment. The mortality rate in Jamestown was over 50% for the first 75 years of its existence. And as you know, in Salem, it was a theocratic society, Massachusetts Bay Colony, so you had to be a member of the church. And if you weren't a member of the church, you were outcast. So much so that in 1692 there was the experience of the Salem witch trials. So it's not such an easy decision, but if you had to go to one of those two places as a early colonist, which would you choose? And there's a forum there for you to participate in. And then we move on to the next TSW. We'll take a look at push and pull factors. Why did people leave and why did they choose the United States? We begin with a very important topic, the distinction between migration. There's forced migration and voluntary migration. And a big part of US history is slavery. So we will take a look at the African slave trade and those who were enslaved and forced into migrating to the colonies and to the United States. We'll look at indentured servitude, and you'll draw some conclusions on whether or not that was forced or voluntary. And then, of course, much of the American experience was voluntary migration. So we will look at where the push and pull factors related to the different waves of immigration and that activity. And then we'll look more particularly at what push and pull factors are here. And then I have an activity designed particularly on the Statue of Liberty. Perhaps you recognize this first line of Emma Lazarus's poem, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." For many immigrants who came to the United States, they experienced the Statue of Liberty. That was the first thing that they saw as they were coming upon the American shores. And I have some questions. You'll analyze that poem, that very famous poem, and get to learn about the Statue of Liberty. And then finally, the decision to leave. We'll take a look at a couple case studies in immigration history. And in those case studies, you'll get to identify some push factors and pull factors particular to the immigrant experience. So essentially, that is it for week one. As always, contact me if you have any questions. I am very happy to help. I'm excited about this topic and look forward to all of your thoughts on the compelling question, is America the haven for the world's immigrants? Have a good week. Bye.